We duplicate that template project. We rename it TextAnimators. We rename our project file to be TextAnimators. And then After Effects should have opened, or should be opening. I don't know if it's still thinking about it or what. Nope, it decided not to open, so I'll just double click. All right, so I don't have any composition here, correct? Yes. So because this one is type, the first thing we want to do is we're going to grab a sentence, a quote, and then that's what we're going to animate our quote to. It should be a quote, not a soliloquy, if you're familiar with that. It's a long single person talking in a book or a play or a movie. So inspirational quotes. Perfect. It's good enough, right? Spend more time looking for your quote. I'm just grabbing that one. Or if you have a quote you want to use, then definitely use that. Okay. Are you going to share it or no? This is the teaser?
Just in case if I get it wrong. The day may not always be good, but there's always something good about the day.
Yep, that's good. All right, and if your text is too long, like it's one big sentence, break it up into smaller pieces so that it makes more sense. And I'm going to do two things here because I can't see a thing up there. You guys have to tell me if you can't see stuff because I can't see behind me. There we go. All right. So I'm going to use Helvetica for this. I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to pick a bluer color. Bluer. Saturation down. There we go. Okay. So anytime we have text on the screen, we have to be concerned about the fact that it may, if we put it right here on the screen, that might get cut off of someone's screen, right? So we don't want that. After Effects has these, which are title safe. So right next to the overlay button that people keep hitting, if you go to the title safe, this inner one here is our title safe. Okay? So typically you want to keep your text kind of bundled into that area. You can go outside that a bit. A lot of this is for like older TVs that would basically like literally cut off that much of your stuff. So we don't need to worry about it too much now, but it's always best to have a nice little margin. Right? So that's my quote, "Nothing is impossible. The world itself says I'm possible." Should. I think so. Yeah, I think that looks better in there. The apostrophe, quote, exclamation point inside that. Whatever I want this to look like, I want to basically set it up now, because how I'm going to animate this is going to be depending on that. So if I don't like the placing of "nothing is impossible" and then there's a big gap and then it says the word itself says "I'm possible," I may want to do something like this, and then like that, and then like that. Okay, so that's where I'm able to change font types, even the kind of font that it is. I can change those individually, but as far as the animation goes, the animation is going to pretty much be on the entire thing at once, right? Well, I'm saying right, you don't know that yet, so it is right. And there's Audrey Hepburn. Maybe I want to change this font to something a bit more scripty. Bless you. And I may want to align this to the paragraph line to the right side. And let me throw my title safe back on again. Drop that down there. Good. And I I think I can get rid of the dash. I think just having Audrey Hepburn at the bottom works. All right, so let's say that that's what I'm going to do with this. So this is the way we animated before. We click the position. Oops. And then let me just reverse these so that they animate in the correct orientation. There we go. So this is what we did before. We just moved something, literally moved the entire thing from top to bottom or left to right or whatever, right? That's pretty boring. So underneath each one of these arrows, and it's a good idea as a beginner to explore under the arrows because you don't know what else is under there until you start exploring. There is a text area, and inside here is a whole bunch of other stuff. So there's path options. So instantly you would say to yourself, okay, I can take a piece of text and I can put it on a path. That's something you could do, and you could have the text actually animate on a path. You could group stuff together. You can do fill and stroke per character palette or, I don't really play with those too much. The thing that we're going to play with is right here, which says animate. And just like the other one where we did the trim path and we picked that from the list, all text has their own way that we can animate the text coming in or going out or whatever. So if I go here, I can control the position, I can control the opacity, I can control any of these features right from this list. So I'm going to animate the position of this, and this is going to confuse you. It's fine, just let it. Yeah, just accept it. So the way it works is we have a position. This is the starting position for the text. Where do you want the text to start at? Okay, where it's going to end up at is right there. So we've already positioned the end point. We have to position the start point. So in this case, I want the text to drop in from the top, let's say. Okay, so which number am I going to adjust? The right one, because the other one is wrong. All right, so there's the position. Now, if I just play this, nothing happens because I didn't set any keyframes to say when to go from the start to the end, okay? So if I open up my range selector, this is it's exactly like the trim one where we had a start, an end, and an offset. So if I go down here to the start and I click and drag, you can see how the text just drops in, right? Now if I go the other way, what do you think is going to happen? Nope. Reverse, right? So it'll go backwards. Okay. So that's hard to read. So don't do it that way, right? So I'm going to go this way. Okay. So I set a keyframe at the start. I scoot up a little bit. And I set a keyframe at the end. Okay. And then I just rewind and hit play. Right? Way too fast, by the way. Way too fast. So let me drop that. Okay. So there, done. Okay, so that's how I can animate all of those things. Mm-hmm.
So if it's, I know you moved it up, if it was on up where it was positioned, will the text, because you know the text is like falling.
Right?
Yeah, so will the text just pop up?
If I had the position at 0,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. It does nothing. Because the start point and the end point are exactly the same. Okay, this is what is confusing about it because you have to say, I want to move it here, and then I want to animate it moving from there to there. Okay, so that's the confusing part of it. Once you understand that, everything else with this becomes simpler because opacity works the same way, rotation works the same way. We can have a lot of stuff doing the same kind of thing using these text animators, all right? So now this looks, I don't really like how this is coming in with each individual letter. So I can go over here and say, maybe I want the words to do that. Oops, sorry. I clicked the wrong one. Per character. There it is. I have to go under my advanced here, and I have to choose based on words. There we go. Okay, so now what's happening is that each word comes down versus each letter. So that might be something that's a bit more effective, right? Now I could also mix these. So let's say that I wanted the top area to write down each letter, and then I want the last I'm possible to go I'm possible, like that, okay? So this is how I would mix those. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm going to let it play out so I can see it. And then I'm just going to delete the top part of that one. So now I have two I'm possibles that I'll just move this one down. Then I'm going to go to the other one and delete the I'm possible part. Okay, so now basically I have two layers. One says I'm possible, the other one is the top piece of text. So now they do that. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my arrows. I'm going to go to my arrow here, my animator, my range selector, my advanced. There we go. So the I'm possible is going to be based on words. We already have that set up. The nothing itself, or nothing says impossible. I'm going to change this to, oops, I did it again. There it is. To characters. So now that one comes in with the characters, and then the I'm possible comes in as words. Okay, so now it's just a matter of me then taking the I'm possible part and then scooting it down to where I want that to actually come in. So I'm going to hit U on this so I can actually see where these things are. This, let's say, will take 2 seconds to come in. This will take, let's say, 15 frames. Okay, so now it should be letters and then boom, boom, right? And I could squish that in even more and make it a little bit more impactful. Oops, I think I need to have that out a bit more. I'm going to change it just slightly. So here's the word I'm coming in. I'm going to set a keyframe there. So that's at 50%. I'm going to scoot up a little bit. Scoot up a little bit. Set this to 50. So now what I should have is basically I'm comes in, a little bit of a pause, possible comes in. Okay, that way it's a little bit more impactful. Right? So that makes it a little bit more impactful doing that. Now the good thing with this is we don't need to worry about where is it? About hitting. If we go here and we right click and we do our keyframe assistant, we can hit easy ease. You don't have to worry about going to the graph editor for this because it's already pretty much taken care of. There's also ease down here that we can play with, but again, we'll get into that. Right now, just kind of play with, you know, just put easy ease on them, and then you should be good with that. Right? And especially for this one, I don't think I would put the ease on that one because it would be weird to have the text, you know, all of a sudden move really quick. Let's just see what it looks like. Right? You can see how it's inconsistent. It's like slow and then fast and then slow. That didn't make sense there. It makes sense here because I want those words to fall faster, right? All right, so that's how I can get those words, boom, boom, to pop into that. So I'm going to take this comp, rename. Oops. What are you trying to write? Text 01, there we go. All right, and then I'm just going to duplicate this so that I could do something different on it, okay? So you're going to have one of these that incorporates these kinds of settings, okay? Just using these animators straight up like this, right? That's your tester one. I'm going to take my impossible here, and I'm going to re-put it back onto this one because I only want to do one layer with this one. So that one can get deleted. Okay, cool. All right, so there's that coming in. I want to remove that because I don't want to do the position on that one. So the way I delete it is I can go to my animator and just hit the delete key, and now that animator is gone. It's no longer animating the text coming in, right? So let me play with some of the other stuff that we can do here. So let's say I do scale. Okay, so when I go to my scale here, what am I setting for these values? Am I setting the start point of the scaling or the end point of the scaling? Nope, we didn't set any keyframes yet. So think about that text. What did we set? Did we set the start point of the text, or did we set the end point of it? When we adjusted the Y position, we were setting its start point, so it was off the screen. Okay? So we're setting the start point for the scale. So I'm going to set my scale to 0, and now there's no text on the screen because it's all scaled to 0. Then I open up my range selector, and again, same thing that we had before. I'm going to go to the beginning, I'll hit start, I'll go over here, I'll type in 100 for the start, and now we should get this. Okay, now it's subtle, but watch as I go frame by frame, you can see that each letter is scaling down. So their start point is 0, and then their end point is 100. It already knows what the end point is because we set up the end point right at the beginning. That's what it's going to look like. Okay? If I change the font type or any of that, it automatically knows that's the end point. So in this case, we've set up the start point to say 0 is the start, 100 is at the end. Okay, so now let me delete this one, and we'll add a different one. So let me go to opacity. So am I going to set the start point or the end point for opacity? Start point. Okay, so what is it going to start off at? Yep, so we just rewind it to 0. We set a start keyframe here. We set an end keyframe there. Okay. Now this one looks very similar to the other one, especially on the smaller text. But when we get to I'm possible, you can really see how it fades in, right? And again, this is something that could also be broken up. So I could have one word, not that you would want to mix 50 different things. You could have one word do scale, one word do opacity, one word do position. And you have to break up each one of those into a separate layer so that you could do that. There are ways to do it within one, but it's 10 times more confusing. Just break it up and then just have those separately. Okay? All right, so let's delete that. Let's see what else we can do here. You can do rotation. With the basic rotation of just rotating something, it's not really effective. Okay? But when you mix rotation with other things, then it becomes more impactful. So I'm going to set my rotation in this case to upside down like that. There we go. Okay, so let me just set keyframes just so you can see that this is not going to look good. It's just going to do this. It's just going to go back to where it was. Right, so it just goes like that. Okay, so again, not very impactful with what we're trying to do. So let's add something else to this. So if I were to add, let's say, scale to this, what it would do is it would actually scale up and then flop into position. So I'm going to go to Add, Property, and then I'm going to add Scale. And then all I have to do is it adds scale right above rotation. I just type in the start point of scale, and now it's gone at the beginning. And then watch, the I'm possible will be more obvious because it's a bigger word. So you can see how each one of those letters is actually like rotating and scaling up at the same time. Okay, now just for fun, let's add another one in there. Let's go to position. And we'll have the position start, oops, let's rewind this. That's too far down. We'll just move this to like there. Let's see. All right, that should be good. All right, so now it looks like it's coming up like out of the bottom of this and then flying and like landing in that position. So again, there's a lot of different combinations you can do with something as simple as this. Now, let's again play with some more stuff. So let's say that we wanted, we wanted the text to just come out of the middle, right? So instead of it coming all the way from the bottom, I'm going to delete scale, delete rotation. So very easily I can just get rid of ones I don't want, and the position one still fits. So let's say that I wanted this to not come all the way from the bottom. Like that's too much of a travel. I want it to look like right where it's at now. I want it to literally just like move up, like it just comes out of nowhere. So I'm going to split these again. Let me go back to this one where they're already split. And I'll just duplicate text one again. Okay, so this has them split. I'm just going to delete their animations. Okay, so I'm deleting their animator, so we're back to where they were at the beginning, like that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do the nothing is impossible. So I'm going to add a animator to it. I'm going to do the position, and basically I'm just going to have this move up a little bit, just like that. Okay, so it's going to go from basically right underneath where it was to right where it was, right? All right, so let's go to the range. Let's go to start position. We'll go up to 2 and put that to 100. Okay, so obviously now it doesn't do it. It just looks awkward. That's right there. I could take a shape, and I could draw a black box right here. And now it looks like it's coming out of nowhere, right? But the problem with this is that that black box is an actual shape, okay? It's not transparent. I want this to be transparent. So if you remember when we did the blip circle one, there was a way to make it transparent. Do you recall what that was called? A mask, right? It's a track mask. So I'm going to go and make sure that these things are set up correctly. It is already, cool. So the shape has to be on top, right here, and then the nothing has to be right below it. And then we just go to the track matte, and we say alpha inverted matte, that layer. So that hides this layer, so the visibility is off, but now it's actually transparent. It's not visible at all. So when we go here, we don't see the text. When we go to here, let me hide the I'm possible. We don't see the text still. It's completely blank. And then now when we hit play, it looks like it's coming up right out of there. Okay? Watch any lowercase or any hanging letters, whatever that thing is called. You don't want the Y, let's say, to be cut off, or if you had a G or a J be cut off. So I can do the same thing to the I'm possible, but this one I'm going to do backwards. Okay? So this one I'm going to create the shape on top of it. Make sure it's on top of I'm possible. Use the track matte. Now for the other one, I use the alpha inverted matte. This one I'm going to use the alpha matte. Oops, I have to animate it too. That helps. Text, position. Let's scoot that down. Start is there. And the end is there. All right, I'm just going to move it down so it happens obviously after that. There we go. Okay, so now the word I'm possible is also coming out of nowhere. Now the reason that I chose two different ones is obviously for the demo I want you to see why we would choose one over the other, or where one is more applicable. So in this case, nothing is impossible. At the beginning of it is hiding inside the box. Okay, so what this alpha inverted means is when it's inside this area, when it's inside that box, to be transparent. When it's outside the box, then you can be visible. Okay? The other one, the I'm possible one, is opposite. Oops, let me grab the shape. So the box up here is saying whenever you're inside the box, be visible. Whenever you're outside the box, be invisible. Okay? So now here's the reason we may want to use that. I may have a piece of footage that, you know, I want this one to be visible inside it and then another one to be invisible outside of it. Okay, so I can use a box twice to say, you know, inside the box you're visible and outside you're not, but then something else I may want to be in that place. For instance, do you see where I'm possible ends up, and then do you see where the words nothing is impossible ends up hiding into, right? It's like hiding in that box. So I could use that box twice. We're not there yet, but just know that there is a difference between alpha and alpha inverted. If I choose the wrong one, it'll just do the opposite. So when it's down here, it's visible, and then it turns invisible. So then I know, okay, well, I probably have this thing switched. I'll put that there. Okay. Now the other options that are here, which is Luma matte and Luma inverted. Luma means brightness. I think we mentioned that before. So basically the brightness is what's going to control whether this thing is transparent or not. So as a, for instance, let's say I make a solid. It's that color. I'm going to add, generate, there it is. I'm going to add a gradient to this. Okay, so where's the brightest part? The bottom, right? After Effects will not read the brightness of this layer right now because this is basically like, it'll read the solid, do the stuff to the solid, and then add the effects on afterward. So it basically have to do a pre-comp so that it like merges those layers together, okay? So I'm just going to right-click and pre-compose this and say ramp, move all my attributes to a new layer. There we go. Okay, so now this is like a flattened out version of a ramp. That's all that it is. So if I go here and I make a new piece of text, and we'll go there. We'll make it so we can actually read it. All right, so now let's switch the order of this. And then I'm going to make this a Luma matte ramp, okay? So let me turn off my other things so we don't get confused those. All right, so then as I move this, down at the bottom, the brightest part is where it's visible. At the top, it's becoming invisible, okay? So if I wanted something a little bit more subtle, not just like an obvious, like boom, there's the text. If I wanted something to fade away, that's one way that I could do that, okay? I could also take this ramp, I'm going to double click it so I can see it, and instead of this being a ramp, I could go in here and add basically any kind of effect on this. So one of them is noise. So if I went to turbulent noise, I get this. And if I go back to here, you can see that the hello nurse part actually has some transparency to it. Okay, so certain parts of this are getting more transparent than others. If I switch this to Luma inverted, that means that the black will be visible and then the white will be invisible. Okay, now again, nothing crazy because there's not a whole lot of contrast in this. So I'm going to make this really contrasty. There it is. Cool. Now I go back to that, and then look at that. Okay, so now I can take this and move it around, and you'll see how I get that texture that bleeds through. Now this is, again, it's making it transparent, so it would actually be like invisible text. Okay, if I put this on a solid, oops, and I made that solid a better color so we can see it. That's not necessarily a better color, but it should be better for this demo. There we go. Okay, now eventually when you play with After Effects more, you can actually use this kind of thing to drive other things to happen. So like, let's say that I wanted my words to actually like dissolve and blow away. I can use this as a way to control the transparency by using, let's say, a ramp over here mixed with this noise to make this thing like animate on. So instead of this just being black and white or just being a gradient, it's actually an animated gradient or an animated ramp. So it actually like disappear, okay? And then you could even add particles on top of that and go crazy with that kind of stuff. Cool. All right, so if you get done with your stuff, should get done with your stuff today, then go through and start playing with these text animators, okay? Find a quote, make your comp, and then just start playing with it, looking at the different ways that you can animate stuff in there. One other thing that I'm going to show real quick is that there's more out there than just the basic stuff. So on this animator, here's all the property stuff. So you can animate like the fill color and all that stuff. There's also ways that we can control the selector. So right now it's coming up one at a time. If I change this to wiggle, and then I go here, okay. So in this case, it's like too wiggly, I guess. Maximum amount, minimum amount. There we go. So let's make that, I guess, 0, and then make that more. I guess it's as big as it's going to go. Yep. It's more effective when you have something like opacity, because then it kind of like flickers the opacity versus whatever that was. Cool. All right. Questions on that yet?